अस्सलाम वालेकुम दोस्तों, उम्मीद करता हूँ आप लोग बिल्कुल खैरियत से होंगे। जैसे कि आप मेरे चैनल पे देखते हैं कि हम लोग कनाडा इमिग्रेशन से रिलेटेड वीडियोस बनाते रहते हैं। तो आज हम जो है वो बिजनेस इमिग्रेशन को टच करने जा रहे हैं और मेरे साथ जो पर्सन है उनका नाम मिस्टर एलेक्स है। ये RCIC मेंबर हैं और CPA लाइसेंस हैं और अभी बाकी इनसे जो इंट्रोडक्शन है वो खुद जानते हैं। सो सर, कैन यू इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ टू द सब्सक्राइबर्स?
Yes, thank you for this invitation.
Most welcome.
My name is Alex Romano. I represent North Vista Immigration Consultants here in Toronto, and we're here today to discuss business immigration in Canada.
Okay, so sir, my first question is that, what are the business immigration programs in Canada?
Okay, well, there are several business immigrations stemming from both provincial nominations as well as the federal nominations. If we look at the federal business immigration, what's very popular these days is the startup visa. That startup visa has been taking more and more attraction over the years. It's relatively new and is driven by technology. So anyone interested in introducing a new technology to Canada can easily qualify for a startup visa. There are other programs in various provinces, from BC all the way to Nova Scotia. Now, of course, there are some provinces that specialize more in the provincial nomination of business, attracting business immigrants. Today, Ontario is one of the larger provinces, but of course, Ontario has a very high bar in terms of investment capital, in terms of economic priorities. So this is, when we transfer that to other smaller provinces, we recognize Nova Scotia as being an up-and-coming expansion of a province. We will mostly talk about Nova Scotia today. There are other programs, but we could talk about those programs in the next videos.
Okay, that's great. So sir, as you mentioned that Nova Scotia is the best immigration program right now. So just tell me about what is the basic eligibility criteria for this program?
Yes, well, before we get into some of the details, I want to put an emphasis on the fact that the last year, the pandemic, has really slowed down the economics of and the attention drawn to business immigration. We're only seeing some renewed interest through the provinces because, of course, some of their priorities now are focusing to economic growth, redeveloping business opportunities for new immigrants, and I can see that Nova Scotia is going to be one of the priorities for that province to attract new investment. In Nova Scotia, it's a framework where you have an eligibility requirement. There are at least 7 or 8 factors that one must meet eligibility for. Predominantly, it's a scoring grid. You are measured on the fact that you score certain points for every factor, and if you meet the scoring criteria and the province selects that score, then they send you an invitation to actually apply for the program. It begins really with an interest. It's a submission of an interest for you to start a business. Ideally, and we will go through the factors, ideally we start with the basic factor of languages. Anyone with a language score that's above average. Now, what we mean by above average is if we compare it to IELTS, a level 7,
Okay.
CLB7.
Okay.
That would score an individual 28 points.
So maximum points.
Well, there are even higher points, but
Okay.
the maximum for that is 28 points.
28. Okay.
The next criteria is education.
Okay.
So anybody with a master's degree would normally score 23 points.
Okay.
So as you can see, the points start to add up quickly. The business ownership is an important factor.
Oh, okay.
Someone who has had business ownership in their country for more than 5 years
Okay.
will score a total of 35 points, which is fairly large amount of points
Okay.
to help you get over the threshold of being invited. There is a 20 points for just having basic business ownership
Okay.
or managerial experience. So, for instance, if someone has 3 to 5 years of managerial experience, he'll get 20 points.
Got it.
If he's run a business in his own country for over 5 years within the last 10 and has ownership of 1/3 of the
business.
company,
Okay.
he gets 35 points.
Oh, that's good.
So that's
Okay.
fairly significant. The next criteria, and people always look at, okay, they ask the question, well, what about if I have a large sum of money to invest, and what happens then? The net worth and the amount invested is critical, but it is not the most critical aspect.
Okay.
In other words, you can have a net worth of $1 million
Okay.
and only get 7 points.
Okay.
Because they place more emphasis on managerial and entrepreneurial experience
Oh.
than they do on having money.
Money. Okay.
The investment in a project, if you have more than 300,000 to invest in a project, it'll give you 15 points.
Okay.
Anything less than that will only give you 10 points.
Okay.
So we will make a summary at the end of this to show you what would be ideally a best candidate.
For the okay.
As far as age, well, here's where there's an advantage to being a little older than being less or more younger.
Okay.
Individuals who have more than 45 years of age can easily qualify for this program, and they get 5 points.
Oh,
Of
okay.
course, if you're in the 30s, between 33 to 39, then you'll get an additional 4 or 5 points.
Okay.
So that will, instead of getting 5 points, you can get 10 points.
Okay.
So a younger individual may have less criterias in net worth, so it seems to balance out. So an older individual with good business experience
Of course.
has an advantage in this program. Adaptability. What is adaptability? Well, if you have a relative in Nova Scotia, or you have a sibling or a son or a daughter who's gone to school in Nova Scotia, that gives you the adaptability score, and it'll grant you 5 points.
Okay.
The third, or I guess when we run down the line, economic priorities.
Okay.
Each province has their own economic priorities.
Okay.
Some focus on IT infrastructure, some focus on technology, some focus on medical advancements, others focus on mining, construction priorities. The Nova Scotia program gives you points if you are set up an export business, and as
Okay.
you know, Nova Scotia is part of the Maritime provinces, so its main export is in the fisheries, in the forest products. It's also in the mining to some extent. But anyone who can use products that are manufactured in Canada
Okay.
and are being exported because of